Welcome to TTM Cast, your sports collectibles podcast.
Sponsored by CGC Cards, card grading all in one place. CGC Cards is devoted to expert grading of collectible cards, including TCGs, sports cards, and non-sports cards.
And by sportscollectorsdaily.com. If it happens in the hobby, you'll find it on sportscollectorsdaily.com. And sponsored by GemRate.com. The latest grading statistic from the 4 major grading companies is just a click away. Visit GemRate.com. It's free.
And now, here's our host, Drew Pelto.
Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to TTM Cast, your sports collectibles podcast. Place to talk about TTM, cards, autographs, collecting all kinds of sports collectible stuff, and whatever really comes to our mind. It could be anything. You never know what you're going to get out of us, but typically we keep it sports stuff. We're Season 6, Episode 19. This is June 8th, 2024, and you're listening to a nationally ranked sports collectibles podcast. I am Drew Pelto, coming to you here from the northern part of Texas, and coming to you as the co-host this week from the further northern part of Texas. Arron Littleton joining us here once again. Arron, good to have you on.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be back. I'm recently rehired, unfired after the last episode, so it's good to be here.
Yeah, we've got you back on a probationary basis now, so yeah.
Okay, well, the stars are out, so, that should count for something, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's. I mean, had they still been, I would have been talking to Lee over in Alabama and saying, dude, you're on this week, so yeah. So anyways, like you said, we are into the Stanley Cup Finals. The Stars knocked out by the Oilers. We've got the Oilers and the Panthers in the finals. Any predictions there? Any thoughts on what you think is going to happen with that one?
I just hope it's a good series. I don't really have any predictions. Like I said, stars are out, so that's really my only vested interest. But other than that, hopefully it's just a good.
Just so both teams have fun, basically, at this point. Then, all right, that works.
That's what I'm going for.
What else we got here? NBA Finals. The Dallas Mavericks down 1 game so far against the Boston Celtics. That's a tough team to run into. I mean, the Mavericks, they got hot at the right time there. Made this great second half run, but it's the freaking Celtics. I mean, they've been on a tear this entire season, it seems like. So, any thoughts on how that one's gonna go at all?
Well, early returns are not great.
Yeah,
for the Dallas team.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe Luka and Kyrie have some magic yet. We'll see. But yeah, Boston is tough for sure.
Over on the baseball side of things, the All-Star Game, of course, coming here to Arlington in a little over a month away. But we finally got the list of the legends that are going to be appearing here. So I know you and I are both going to all 4 days of the All-Star Village. Who are the biggest ones that you want to be able to try to get out of the list of legends that are coming into this?
I've got a lot of set needs that I'm working on. I'm actually working on pulling some of this stuff, and it's been a disaster so far. There's a lot of guys that I'm having to pull, but man, Vinny Castilla is one of them. Mark Teixeira, I haven't seen him in years and years. I used to graph him out at the tunnel at the old ballpark, and so I hadn't had an opportunity to get him. I still got a couple cards that I need, but anybody from the Flair middle sets or 2002 Upper Deck 40-man, I'm looking forward to it.
There you go. It sounds good. I know Beltre and Teixeira are topping my list right now. I got set needs on both of them, and I'm hoping Dave Winfield actually does a signing. From what I've heard from a few people, he's there every year just about, but doesn't do one of the actual signings. But we'll see what happens. If I get a chance at him, I've got 3 cards I need to knock out. I'd like to get at least one of those, but yeah, we'll see what happens. What else been going on in the sports world here? I know you're a huge cricket fan, and the USA upsetting Pakistan in cricket at the Cricket World Cup. This is, I mean, people are comparing it to like the Miracle on Ice, and I think it goes beyond that because Miracle on Ice had heavier geopolitical implications with it, but it wasn't quite this upset of, a completely like non-hockey playing country the way that the U.S. is with cricket. I mean, we do not have much in the way of cricket players here. We've got a decent hockey program, so to upset one of the top countries in the world in cricket is kind of, I mean, this is like Douglas over Tyson, Gardner over Carolyn, Farley Dickinson beating Purdue as a 60-over-1. It's kind of that kind of a level. And I don't know if you heard about this at all. I'm assuming you did.
No, actually, I haven't. I don't. cricket is not high up on my list of sports priorities to pay attention to. Normally, the only thing I know about crickets this time of year is that there's about 1 million in my gym. But other than that, I'm always in for Team USA.
Do you remember the old Grand Prairie or Texas Air Hogs that played just over in Grand Prairie there that Chris and I would go to all the time?
I never made it out there, but I do remember the team.
Stadium is now like the headquarters of USA Cricket, and that game was played right over there, right down the street from me. I'm like, God, if I'd known that was going on, I probably would have gone and checked it out. And now it's like after this upset, it's like, God, now I really wish I'd gone, but I didn't even know what was going on there. So yeah, I mean, that just shows you how little attention cricket gets in the U.S. there. I mean, great on them for the upset, but at the same time, it's like, that's a thing? Wow, okay, cool. So there you go. You and I were talking about this a little bit earlier this week. Utah's hockey team, the former Arizona/Phoenix Coyotes, previously the original Winnipeg Jets, looking for a team name. We've got the list of finalists: the Blizzard, the Mammoth, the Outlaws, the Venom, the Yeti, and the great name of the Utah Hockey Club. What's your preference on what they go with here for this team name?
So I'm usually really bad at this. I will preface any of my comments with that because I really wanted. So when the Kinston team, North Carolina, became rebranded as Down East, they ended up going with the Wood Ducks, but I really wanted the Hogzillas. That was one of the finalists. I was like, listen, if you're going to name your team Down East, you might as well just go all the way. You might as well just knock it out. And when Madison, what would eventually become the Rocket City Trash Pandas, had their names, I really wanted the Moon Possums. And so I am never right at this. I will preface my statement by saying that. But, Mammoth is solid. I do not like the Utah hockey team. That's a little too football for me. But man, I think you got to go with the Yeti. You got a little bit of alliteration there, Utah Yeti. I don't know. I just think that would be a fun brand.
I really don't have anything against any of these names. I think Mammoth, they're opening themselves up to a lawsuit from the Colorado lacrosse team. So I think you may see that one out of the picture. Blizzard, it works, but it's kind of generic, really. Same thing with Outlaws. So yeah, Venom or Yeti, and I'm completely the opposite side. They take Utah Hockey Club and be like, yeah, let's go with that. I mean, make this as bland as you possibly can. So I don't know. I mean, it could be worse. It could be, when the Colorado Avalanche moved from Quebec to Denver, they originally were going to name themselves the Rocky Mountain Extreme. And fortunately, cooler heads prevailed on that because, my God, that would have been an absolute disaster, and they were the Colorado Avalanche instead. But yeah, so I don't know. I think I'm with you on the Yeti there, and I could be down with the Venom. But those first three, the Blizzards, the Blizzard, the Mammoth, and the Outlaws, I don't know, kind of just too generic sounding for my liking. So yeah,
I saw an article that said, "Are you really about to have the Blizzard and the Avalanche playing in a division with one another?" And I was like, yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that's kind of disastrous there. So, anyways, how's your week been looking, Aaron? I'll tell you right now, this is my last week off until July 20th. I have something going on graphing every single weekend. Next week, we've got Amarillo at Frisco. The week after that, you and I are going down to Cleburne for their game against the Milwaukee Milkmen. The week after that, we've got Corpus Christi coming out to Frisco. And then after that, I think is I'm not sure if it's the All-Star game week that's right after that, or we've got something else and then the All-Star game week. But either way, I've got something every single weekend in there. So this is going to be kind of an interesting and very busy few weeks. And this past week, I've been spending going through all of my hockey cards because my friend Aubrey, who you know and who has been on the show a couple times, and this gets mentioned a little bit later on once when I talked to Clemente Lisi here, but she went to a hockey game this past week and has gotten hooked and now wants to TTM hockey. So I've been pulling cards for her. So that's what I've been doing this entire week now at this point. But what's been going on for you? What have you had going on so far here the last week or two or however long?
Well, for the first thing on hockey, that's how it happened with me. I was an unassuming North Texas sports fan, baseball, basketball, and then, I went to the Wichita Falls Wildcats game, and, you and I became friends, and all of a sudden I'm watching hockey like 13 years later. It's very it's a slippery slope being a hockey fan. I'll tell you that. So you and I have got opposite trajectories right now because I've really got nothing going on until as you said, Cleburne in a couple weeks, and then after that, I'm going to do a couple games in Frisco during July, and it'll be All-Star Village, and then I will be off to California. But I've got some probably much needed downtime between now and then.
Nice. We may have to get you on while you're out in California just for some updates or something at some point, like I did with Jeff when we did our big road trip back in 2022.
Sounds like fun. I'd be more than willing to do it.
Great. Well, hey, on this week's show, as I mentioned just a little bit ago, Clemente Lisi is joining us in Clemente's world and talk some Stanley Cup Finals, guys who have seen an upward trajectory on some of their cards, a little bit about Joe Pavelski's retirement, and a little bit about some soccer cards that he was able to pick up this past week as well. In addition to that, all of our regular segments, Baker's Dozen comes before that, Making the Grade comes after Clemente's World, followed by Stamp of Approval, the Vernon Rap Minute, and the main reason why we all are here, it is our TTM Returns. It's how we close out this show. If you want to get in contact with us, we've been getting a lot of reader comments lately, questions, comments, answers, all kinds of great stuff. And if you want to get a hold of us, what's the best email address to do that at?
That would be ttmcast@yahoo.com.
There you go. So any questions, any comments, anything you got, feel free to send it our way. We're going to have quite a few reader questions and comments to take a little look at here later on in the show at the end of Baker's Dozen. If you want to get to me directly, that's dfwgrapher@gmail.com. So let's go ahead and get right on this. Right here, we've got Baker's Dozen.
Baker's Dozen, sponsored by SportsCollectorsDaily.com.
Smart collectors turn to Sports Collectors Daily to stay up to date. From new releases to incredible collections hitting the auction block, news from inside the business of sports collectibles, and much more, Sports Collectors Daily has it, all with no subscription cost. SC Daily also delivers a live look at the most watched sports card auctions on eBay for every sport. Sign up to get the headlines in your email for free, or just visit the website whenever you like. With 16,000 stories in the archive going back 16 years, there is always plenty to read at SportsCollectorsDaily.com.
Baker's Dozen is a news summary of all things related to collectibles news from the previous couple of weeks. I want to remind you once again, 5-Star Dynasty has their Instagram bonus for any of our TTM Cast listeners. Go to 5stardynasty.com or 5-Star Dynasty Game on Instagram. Pick up a copy of their game related to, it's a trading card game related to college sports. A lot of fun stuff going on there. My friend Amir Kim El Malawani creating this one, but you can pick up a copy of it, put in your order and let them know. Send them a message on Instagram. Say that you're a TTM Cast listener. They may have some extra bonus items to toss in with you there. Also want to remind you, I have my weekly article on SportsCollectorsDaily.com. Yeah, go and check that out. This past week, I talked a little bit about Mickey Lolich and possibly a little bit of a change in his signing habits here. Possibly, it's been said for a while that he may have maybe dealing with some illness here as he gets older, and he's still signing, just you might not get your item back. So go and check that out, SportsCollectorsDaily.com. And a big thanks to one of our listeners who actually pointed that out to me, I believe. It was one of our listeners, I saw it on our Facebook group, but either way, it's made sure to make mention of that and put that in my article there. So FYI, if you're planning on sending to Mickey Lolich anytime soon. Got some hobby news here. We've got a little auction stuff right off the top of with a Stanley Cup winner. NHL legend Esa Tikkanen won 5 Stanley Cups in his career, 4 with Edmonton, 1 with the New York Rangers. And now you can own one of his Stanley Cup rings. The grinding Finnish forward is putting up 4 of his rings for bids in Classic Auctions June catalog, including his 1994 New York Rangers Stanley Cup ring. It's the first one from that team ever to be put up for public sale. Bidding runs through June 25th. You can check that out at classicauctions.net.
Or if your budget is a little lower, May Gray has several gold pucks up for auction. A total of 94 pucks are open for bids through June 19th from goals scored in NHL games from January 7th through the 21st. Evgeny Malkin and Austin Matthews are 2 of the biggest names. Or maybe you'd be more interested in a guy that Drew and Clemente will discuss later with Joe Pavelski's January 20th goal.
Well, if you're a fan of punch-in-the-face contests, we've got Panini picking up the Professional Fighters League to make some cards of them. The PFL is the only MMA organization that has a season format, including a yearly regular season, playoffs, and championship. Panini will be putting out a PFL Prisms product. That's a lot of P's in there. Panini will be putting out a PFL Prism product later this year. Wow, there we go. And it's also expected to make some NFT collectibles with that league as well.
So, for the first thing, I am always a fan of punch in the face contests. That is one of the greatest sentences I've ever heard in my life. And there's good news for anyone getting cards graded through CGC. They're dropping their prices on bulk and economy level grading by $1. Those buying an elite membership will see prices drop even further down to only $8.80 a card. The pricing just took effect on Thursday and will be even applied to orders made prior to June 6th, as long as they were received after that.
Always good to see affordable options in grading, and they're doing a really great job of that. I mean, you haven't seen $10 or less per card in quite a while in the grading side of the hobby, for sure. Got some new releases here to take a look at. Topps Series 2 Baseball. It's got to be the big one that, I mean, everyone is thinking about, and that is less than a week away. We're 4 days away from the release of that. June 12th is when that'll be hitting the shelves. In there, in the hobby box, you'll see 12 cards per pack, 20 packs per box, with 1 autograph or memorabilia card per box. Pre-sale price on that one right now is $88.
And also dropping on June 12th, we have 2023-24 Topps G League Basketball. There are 8 cards per pack, 4 packs per box, 1 auto, and 3 chrome base cards per box, and the pre-sale price is $45.
So in basketball, we've got a Donruss Optic basketball coming out from Panini. A bit of a higher-end product here with 4 cards per pack, 20 packs per box, 1 autograph, and 20 inserts or parallels in each of those boxes. Pre-sale price there, $570. Well, if you want a chance to pick up some of those items, go and check out a local show near you. And there's a couple of them here on the East Coast that we're going to highlight for this week.
All right, we have the Ocean County Show that's going on June the 15th at Beach Haven and Moose Lodge in Manahawkin, New Jersey. Admission is only $3, and Ed Craneful will be signing for $10 to $25 per item.
While a little further up north in Massachusetts, the Dedham Show at the Holiday Inn in Dedham, Mass. Also a $3 admission fee on that one. A couple of big-name hockey players in there. We've got a U.S. Olympic team member, gold medal winner from the 1980 squad, Rob McClanahan, will be signing $49 an item. And Hall of Famer Raymond Bourque will be there, $50 to $65 per item, depending on what you're getting signed. Go and check out cardboardpromotions.com for more information about that. But like I promised, we've got some listener questions, answers, comments, all that kind of stuff to attend to here. And one thing that we mentioned last week when Troy and I were talking was we were talking about teams that don't forward their mail onto players, or that you're not going to get a whole lot of luck from players on there. And neither of us really had a whole lot to say on that because, I mean, neither he nor I really sent to a lot of active players. Aaron, do you send out to a lot of current players at all in any sport at all?
Not really. I mean, occasionally I'll send to a minor league baseball prospect or something like that, but I mean, that's really about it.
It's just, I mean, it seems like a lot of that has dried up lately. I mean, you go back 20, 30 years and that was the way to get everybody, and now nothing really going on there. But fortunately, we got a listener, Ray, who sent us a comment about some of the teams he sends to. He said he stopped sending to NBA years ago since the success there has been pretty limited, but he gave a few NHL, NFL, and MLB teams that are probably worth avoiding here. So I'm going to just give you the list here and any experiences I've had with them as well. But taking a look at MLB, the Philadelphia Phillies typically says send your cards back with a form letter. The Atlanta Braves, you're not going to get any returns out of there. Texas Rangers will get a team card and a form letter, but no autograph. I've gotten a few players through the Rangers, but it is definitely rare. It's usually kind of, your third, fourth, or fifth guy in the rotation, bench guys like, I'm trying to think. I think Kyle Cody was really good about it a couple of years ago. Dane Dunning has been good about it once in a while, and Nick Solak used to be almost automatic. But aside from that, you're not going to get a whole lot out of the Rangers, so I definitely agree with him putting that on the list. The Pirates, the Reds, the Royals, the Rockies, all of those will not forward at all. Detroit is going to send back your card with info about their paid autograph charity program, which I love that the Tigers do that. I think it's a great way to be able to get autographs, but they're starting to limit it now to only getting their items signed, which it's like that kind of kills it for me. I've kind of lost interest when I can't send my own item in. He also says that the Red Sox and the Mets about a 25% success rate with those teams. So he says he's reluctant to send those out, but once in a while he might have a chance on them. So moving on to the NHL, the Rangers and the Avs will send a preprint team card. Flyers will not forward their mail through the team address. It's kind of hit or miss with their practice facility. The Devils don't give their mail on, and the Red Wings will also send info for their paid autograph program. Theirs, he says, is a bit on the expensive side, though, so buyer beware on that. But those, if I remember right, those 5 teams all have been kind of well-known for not forwarding mail on to players, and it seems, if I remember right, Toronto may be kind of iffy as well, but like I said, it's been years since I've really tried to do any of the NHL players through their teams, unless I know for certain a guy is going to sign. When it comes to the NFL, he says Detroit, Pittsburgh, and Denver will not forward. San Francisco will send a preprint team card. And the Seahawks, you're seeing fewer success over the last 5 years, and in his advice, he says, do not send. So for the listener that was asking about this a while back, there's a few teams to avoid for you there, and aside from that, throw it out there, give a try to it. I mean, it's 68 cents each way. You're not really losing a whole lot if you want to take a chance on some of those other squads. So, Aaron, any that you've, I know you said you haven't sent out a whole lot recently, but anything that you've heard about any of these teams or any other teams that you know a little bit all off of that? Because, I mean, that's about all that I can think of. I can't really, like I said, I'm with you and mostly sending to past players there.
Right, and so, yeah, I mean, most of those have been pretty well known for a while. I remember for how I started collecting hockey was I'd send through a lot of guys. There used to be a lot of current players that would sign through the mail. And so, but, even back then it was conventional knowledge. You don't send to the Rangers, you don't send to the Devils. And so it seems like not much has changed on that.
Another question we got in from actually it's the one who asked, I think, most of these questions a couple of weeks ago. There, this one who's just has the name Riato on his email there, but yes, have you ever mailed to any former players that are now coaching in Japan? And as of right now, I have not sent to any coaches at all, but I have mailed to several former Major League players that are now playing over there, whether they're Japanese players who came over and played in the U.S. and returned, or American or Dominican-born players who have gone over to Japan. And I've had mixed success, but I have not tried any of the coaches yet at all. I know Matt Williams a couple of years ago was a manager in Korea, but I didn't try him there. Have you sent to anybody over on the Pacific Rim at all?
It's mostly like 99% American people. Yeah, people within the United States, and 1% to Canadian hockey players, and that's about it. I haven't been too adventurous in the past.
We got to get you some Japanese and European stamps, I think, and get you on board there. So yeah,
I'm willing to try it.
We had another listener, Tyler, who sent us a couple of questions, and one was about card prep and just how to, prep your cards best when sending them out so you don't get a smeared autograph back. I may do a video on that here soon, because I have not. I mean, I did one on constructing a graphing book, and I touched a little bit on card prep in there, and you know what? I might do that again here soon. So any listeners who have any thoughts on how to prep your cards, feel free to let me know, and I can make sure to get those in on the video. I mean, I know I've got 3 just off the top of my head that I can use as ideas for it. And I know, Aaron, you're just the, typically whenever we're doing any in-person stuff, you're just the rub it down with the fingers, and usually it's been good for you. And I've had kind of mixed results on that. Any other systems you've tried that have worked well at all or anything like that?
If I'm going to send it out through the mail, and that's really the intention of what I'm doing, then I'll use baby powder. But sometimes you're bringing a couple hundred cards to the ballpark, and so it seems to be a little crazy to try to rub each and every one of those down with baby powder. And yeah, so I mean, I've been doing this like 23 years at this point, and every time I go graphing, I just rub it down really good. Even the chrome cards, you rub them down, and it works for me. So if it's not broke, don't fix it.
So there you go, Tyler. I'll try to do a video on the DFW Grapher YouTube channel here in the next couple of weeks here to kind of show off different methods of card prep, what cards do, what cards don't, all that kind of stuff. And Tyler went on to ask his kids are homeschooled. He's trying to help them out with improving their writing, especially letter writing, and so they've started TTMing for that. He was asking for ideas on what his kids can write to players who were around before they were born, because he said they have mailed off to like Charlie Huff and Danny Darwin so far, but for when you're dealing with these any kids anywhere from 7 to 15, and you're sending guys from the 1970s, 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, I mean, it can be tough to come up with content, even for somebody like me who's, 40 years old, sending to somebody who retired, a few years before I was born, or even, back in the 50s in some cases. It can be tough to come up with. What kind of stuff do you put into letters there for anybody who's been around, that far back? Like if you're writing to Bobby Shantz, this is a guy that was hanging him up, by the time my dad was still in high school there. What do you write to somebody like that?
Yeah, so, I try to be as honest as possible, but I also try to do some research, and so I'll go online, that's the best thing about the internet. It's the entirety of human knowledge, and so there's got to be something out there that, whether it be depending on when they played, whether there's, a video of them, on YouTube or something that you can actually watch them pitch or play or whatever. And, but if not, there's all sorts of, baseball is great about history specifically. And, you can find something of people talking about this player. And I just try to put a little bit of legwork in instead of, hey, I have this card. Will you sign it?
Yeah, for me, it's, kind of similar. I'll always start and say, hey, you played before I was born, but I'm always interested in the history of the game and past players especially, and try to find a connection. If a guy, for me being, a Cleveland Indians and Guardians fan, I'm going to look for somebody who played for them. And, mention, hey, yeah, you used to play for them. Or if they played for the Tigers, I'll say, oh, yeah, I've got family in Michigan. They're all big Tigers fans. Something like that. Find a connection in some way like that. One of my favorites is anytime that I can name drop George Brunette in a letter, I will do that because he played all over the place for, 30 years, it seems like, I think, across the major and minor leagues. But he was my dad's next door neighbor for several years in the 1960s. So he's always a fun one to drop in there. And usually guys look at it and like, oh, my God, he knew Georgie. Wow, hey, that's great. So I've gotten occasional notes back from players, and even I think it was a couple of broadcasters. It was Dick Enberg wrote a quick note back and said, yes, I do remember seeing Brunette play. I did call his games or something like that. So you never know what you're going to get, but the more personal of a connection you can make in there, even if it's something incredibly tenuous, it's something there. So yeah, like you said, do your research. Wikipedia is amazing for this kind of stuff, and you never know what kind of articles you might find on there. So yeah, it's a good way to get the kids reading there as well. So Tyler, thanks for the questions on there. Hopefully that helps you out, and be interested in hearing, who the kids send out to, who they get back, all that kind of stuff. It's always just good getting the kids involved here in the hobby. Well, that's about does it for Baker's Dozen. Let's move on into Clemente's World.
You know what that means. It's time for Clemente's World.
Clemente Lisi joining us here once again this week as we're going to talk some hockey and some soccer and all that kind of fun stuff. We're right in the middle of the greatest time of the year for hockey here. The Stanley Cup Finals are starting tonight. I unfortunately have to miss game one. I've got some other stuff going on, but should be a good series. Let's hear what Clemente thinks about what's ahead. All right, well, we are here in Clemente's World. It's the first week of the month. We're joined by Clemente Lisi, talking a little bit of hockey and a little bit of soccer here as well. We've had a few soccer releases lately, and I know you picked up a box we'll get to a little bit later, but it's Stanley Cup Finals season. We're finally there. It's starting, on Saturday night, I believe. I'm going to have to miss game one, but be able to check out the rest of them there. But Oilers and the Panthers, who saw that coming? Wow.
Yeah, no, I didn't see it coming. I'm not surprised the Oilers are there, but I shouldn't be surprised that the Panthers are there for the second straight year.
Right.
And they knocked off my Rangers, of course, and now I got my nights back. I can go back to sleep at a normal time. But look, the Panthers are never say die. They really are. And they remind me a little bit of the Tampa Bay teams from a few years ago, but they're just gritty, strong, great goaltending, and they just never stop. Now, the Oilers are the team that, don't forget, back in October, they had gotten off to a really poor start. And yeah, they have all these big names and they have McDavid and everything else. But finally, maybe McDavid can win the cup, and who knows? That would sort of, for him be a huge achievement. I think that's the one thing he's really missing is a cup. So we'll see what happens.
I'm definitely ready for another Canadian Cup winner because I'm tired of hearing about the 1993 Montreal Canadiens as the last team because of the Penguins fan. We were supposed to win it that year and choked it away. And now it's like, oh, yeah, I get to hear about these guys again. But it's a great chance to see, the cup return to Canada here, hopefully for the first time since 31 years now, I guess, since that happened. So, wow.
Yeah, which is pretty extraordinary. And considering that during the pandemic, they had an entire, sort of group just for Canada. So Canada was guaranteed a Final Four spot, and even that year they couldn't do it. So look, we'll see what happens. Look, McDavid is iconic, and I think this would really consolidate him as he's huge in the hobby. And, sometimes he's, sort of surpassed by Crosby or Ovechkin. But if you ever go to an expo or wherever, I mean, even if you just go to a regular card show and they only have, and the few hockey cards they have, it's usually a McDavid Young Guns card.
Yeah.
So, McDavid is iconic. He's like the modern Gretzky. And so I think winning a cup would look, it wouldn't increase his values because they're already way high. Mm-hmm. I do think it helps a couple of other players in that team, including Leon Draisaitl, who was, I think, underrated, and you can get his cards fairly affordable. And I have to wonder if the Oilers do win this whole thing, he might win the Conn Smythe. And so that would give him a bump. This happened to Cale Makar a few years ago. Like, he got a huge bump from winning the cup, and then the prices kind of went down a little bit. So if you're looking for Oilers stuff, it's obviously not the right time to buy now. I mean, you should have done that 3 weeks ago, which would have been a good bet. I mean, I had the Oilers going pretty far, so I'm not totally surprised. I'm curious to see how the league feels about it, because you have two very strange markets in the final. You have, a Canadian team, great. Okay. But it's Edmonton, so it's, it's like 9 hours away from New York and whatever. I think it's still cold there. And then you have Florida, which is the warm market team. But would Dallas been any better? I don't know. Now, don't get me wrong. Dallas is an exciting market, and you would have had that double, like the Mavs are in the championship. So that's happened before, where you have a basketball team and a hockey team in the finals, and that would have been great for Dallas. But either way, look, I think it's going to be a great series. My prediction, I think, is that the Oilers will win it, but I think never say die to the Panthers. It might go 6 games. It might even go 7 games. I would not be surprised. I was very surprised that they were able to kind of flip the script on the Rangers, and they were able to do that in a way that, Shesterkin was having, I think, probably the best series, the best goaltending performance of any goalie in the playoffs. And even that didn't matter. Even that couldn't get the Rangers over the hump. So, so we'll see what happens. But look, it's exciting for sure.
It is. I mean, and it's kind of weird, just the differences between the two. Because you mentioned, of course, McDavid and Draisaitl as being the two big names there. Florida doesn't really have that big marquee name like that at all. I mean, you've got a bunch of solid guys there, like, Tkachuk and Barkov and a couple of the defensemen there, but no name that just lights everybody up or anything like a McDavid or a Draisaitl does.
Yeah, no, they don't have big names. And in terms of the hobby, definitely not. I mean, look, Bobrovsky is maybe the biggest name they have in terms of goalie. And, and they've had very good goalies before. They've had Belfort was a goalie there, Van Beesbrook, Luongo, there's a tradition of big name goalies. And look, in the playoffs, a hot goalie can be anything. Right. Now, that's the thing about hot goalies, though. Goalies don't do well in the hobby generally. And you don't need a particular type of name. You just need a hot goalie. It could be anybody. And in this case, maybe it is anybody. And that might be what gets them. But it's going to be defense versus offense for sure. But Draisaitl has been scoring like crazy, and I just don't see how that stops here. But who knows? I mean, back in October, back at the Expo, the Oilers were doing so badly that people were not even selling Oilers stuff like McDavid or Draisaitl. Like, it was not even the showcases. It was it was all about Crosby and Bedard, of course. So it's interesting how quickly things can change, like the stock market. Things go up and down really quickly. But look, for McDavid, it will be a coronation. I mean, he's already a Hall of Famer, but just to see him lift the cup and to see a Canadian team do it, I'm kind of in that camp a little more. Maybe I'm old school and I'm not crazy about seeing teams in Florida winning the cup, and they've done pretty well for themselves over the past few years. I mentioned Tampa, but it's funny how Tampa was very strong for a few years there, and they were almost forgotten at this point. It's right. Recent history. It's so there is something to that, but we'll see what happens. As long as it's a close series and it goes, 6-7 games, and I think we're in for some fun.
Yeah. You mentioned with Bobrovsky, I mean, not just the fact that goalies don't quite have the hobby appeal that the star forwards do out there. How much of it also is, I mean, this is his 5th team, I think, that he's been on in the NHL. It seems like he's bounced around everywhere there for a while. Collectors tend to like players having a single team identity. You say Crosby, you think Penguins, you say McDavid, you think Oilers. You look at guys like Mike Gartner, like Jeremy Roenick, like Marcel Dion, three of the top goal scorers of all time, right there. You don't identify any of those guys with a single team the way you do somebody like that. So how much does that kind of hurt a guy as well?
No, that definitely matters. And there's a lot of collectors I know who are not crazy about seeking someone's, rookie card, for example, if it doesn't match their current team.
Right.
And in hockey, that happens. Like I know, like in New York, Panarin is a big deal, but his rookie card is not in the Rangers, uniform.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of fans that are turned off by that. Or Patrick Kane, for example, like a lot of Blackhawks fans love him, but he's not in the Hawks anymore. He went to the Rangers, then to the Red Wings, So his collectability tends to go down. It's funny, Patrick Kane's a great example how people in Chicago still collect him and love him, but people in New York and in Detroit probably less so because you're right, those are earlier cards. You associate him with that one team, and so the more player moves around, the more less likely that is. Now, look, because of free agency and big contracts, players are going to move around more. That's number one. And goaltenders move around more because they're utilitarian. You need them when you need them. And it's rare to have that one goalie like a Mike Richter, for example, who played for the Rangers, his whole career, basically,
right,
and won a cup there and still not a Hall of Famer, but I'm not going to, I'm not sour about it. No, but,
right.
And look, Hockey Hall of Fame is weird. You never know who gets in and doesn't get in. But goaltenders tend to not get that respect. I mean, look, Tom Barrasso got in the Hall of Fame just last year,
Yeah.
So that's an example. But yeah, Bobrovsky is the kind of a journeyman, I would call him at this point. But if Florida wins, it's because of him, for sure. Because like you said, they have players out there. It's mostly a team effort. There's no big star. But the goaltending gets you where you need to be. The Oilers for years had bad goaltending, and then this year they actually have some decent goaltending. But for years, that was their big problem. You have these 2 or 3 star players who can score tons of goals. But when you're giving up 5 or 6 goals every night, none of that matters. And so finally they got it right. Now, will it get them to win the cup? We'll see. But like I said, I think it's going to be a great series. And not the two teams anybody envisioned. That everyone had visions of New York or Boston or Colorado or Dallas even. I was totally wrong. I thought it would be like New York, Colorado. I was totally off, And then my other prediction was Toronto, Edmonton, all Canadian. I was off on the Toronto part big time.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I should have known. I mean, they always have a habit of falling short really early, And let's not forget last year when Florida got to the finals, they were the 8th seed and they knocked off the number 1 team. And this year, the same thing. They knocked off the President's Cup winners, the Rangers.
Yep.
So they have a habit of doing this, and not totally shocking.
Yeah. What does this do for a guy like Zach Hyman up there in Edmonton? I mean, this is a guy that maybe he's just completely slipped my mind, but I don't remember hearing anything about him. Now suddenly he's exploded for 15 goals or so in the playoffs by this point. This has been, a heck of a run that he's on right now.
Yeah, no, I know. Another player that I always thought was very good, who unbelievably enough is 31 years old, is Nugent Hopkins, and he's also a great scorer, and he's having a great, he's had a great playoffs, and so there's a lot of players on that team who are probably they're probably due for something at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But look, we shall see. It's kind of like the 2 underachievers, I would think, finally making it. But look, if you're the NHL, Edmonton might not be a great market, but having McDavid in the finals is a big deal. I think they're going to market that. And, I read just the other day that the Oilers sold the most merchandise ever in a day, the day they won that series. And so definitely there's a lot of Oilers merchandise that's flying off the shelves. And look, a lot of people that are our age or older associate that team with Gretzky.
Yes.
And so that doesn't hurt either in terms of collectability, in terms of, that mystique. And so that tends to really, it wouldn't shock me at all. And I'm speculating here, but it wouldn't shock me at all that Gretzky stuff would start to grow in the next few weeks. Also because, he works for TNT, he commentates on these games, but it wouldn't shock me that Gretzky stuff would rise in value. Only because by association, people kind of associate the two and then go back. And of course, Gretzky stuff is ubiquitous, but it's also super expensive. But it's like, I think of any sport, all 4 major sports, Gretzky is the most collectible of anybody. Well, maybe Michael Jordan, but in terms of collectability, Gretzky, it's really difficult to take him off that perch.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a guy to mention here that just had his team get eliminated. Joe Pavelski announcing his retirement today, 476 career goals. Another guy that's really kind of flown under the hobby radar a bit there. I mean, I guess it's kind of a case where he's never really been the best player on the team he's played for, but has quietly put up, near Hall of Fame numbers. If he could have gotten a cup in there, I think he would probably have a really good case there, but just coming up short a bit this year.
Yeah, so he's over 1,000 points, which to me is kind of puts you in Hall of Fame territory for sure. Yeah, he's the hobby, no hobby love for him, mostly because of a couple of factors. One is a lot of the hobby is centered in Canada.
Yes.
And he didn't play for Canadian teams. He played not only for Dallas, but also San Jose. So warm climate American teams. Okay. That doesn't help. Then you had no cup. So that doesn't help him either. And so I don't know what his Young Guns card goes for or whatever his rookie cards, but I bet you they're not a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he's a Hall of Famer. Now, there often is no bump in value when someone retires. You need a Hall of Fame or you need to die to get that bump or win a cup, something kind of big. And I don't think in this case, retiring will do anything. But look, if you got an itch to go on eBay and look up for Pavelski, maybe his patch cards, his numbered cards, because they're probably affordable. And if you're in the Dallas area, he's been on the Stars for 5-6 years now.
Yep.
Look, in hindsight, he's 40 years old, which doesn't shock me, but he was putting up numbers that, a 40-year-old would not put up. I mean, this year he scored 27 goals, 40 assists, something like that. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of points. I think he put up the same number of points as Bedard. So
wow,
kind of crazy. But, having said that, would have been kind of nice to see him win a cup, maybe, now that I realize he's 40 and he's retiring, right when they were done. But that happens. But yeah, the hockey hobby is really weird because there isn't a lot of room for a lot of superstars. I think this is happening in all sports. Everyone chases the 2-3 names, and then they're speculating on the younger people, the younger players. And then you have this middle part where there's all these guys in there. And I put guys like Stamkos in there. And there's a bunch of guys like that who are very good, potentially Hall of Famers, and they're just totally forgotten by the hobby.
Yeah.
But the good thing about that is that you can go and buy those cards and you can afford them. And that's good too, because if everything was expensive, if everything was McDavid or Crosby, then we wouldn't be able to buy anything. And that's not good. So yeah. And look, if you're in Dallas or San Jose, this is a player that you probably admire a lot. I mean, especially San Jose Sharks fans. He was there for, I think, 12 years, maybe more. It's 13 seasons or something. So yeah. Definitely for sure, and some of those Sharks teams were pretty good back then. But yeah, no, totally. It's worth mentioning him because, and you see retirements at the end of a season all the time too, but definitely worth mentioning and someone totally affordable. And I think if you go to the next Dallas card show, I'm sure you'll be able to find some of his stuff for sure.
Definitely. It's always a fun time of year here because, people who have never watched hockey before, or at least have watched it but never gotten into it seriously, you see them become diehard fans right now, and hopefully that sticks around for some of them there. But I had to mention that because I've got a friend of mine who's been on the show before, my friend Aubrey, who was interviewed by Jeff a few years ago and has become a TTMer mostly in baseball and a little bit of some astronauts as well. Went to an ECHL playoff game the other night up in Kansas City. And immediately, the first period's not even done. She's asking me, okay, how can I graph this? How do I do this? How do I get these guys to how do I do this? I'm like, all right, we're going to set you up for TTMing. So we've got another hockey TTMer on board there. So I've spent the last couple days here just going through and trying to pull the cards for her. And so I'm definitely getting back into it a bit myself here when I've kind of fallen off maybe a little bit, not exactly fallen off, I'd say, but my hockey mailouts have not been as strong as they have been in previous years. So it's been fun kind of getting her into that and getting myself back into it a bit here now too.
It's funny because a lot of the best signers in hockey are 70s, 80s, 90s, and some of that is junk wax. And so the cards are super cheap. So if you mail them and you lose them, it's okay. But more likely than not, you're going to get them signed. And there's we can start naming names of guys who sign. There's a ton. And so when you get into TTMing and you get into, say, you start with hockey, your return on investment is huge because hockey players sign and you start to get really addicted to it. And so, so she's going to be busy
Yeah.
for sure. And you know what? This is a good time too because now it's summer months, and
Yep.
even if you want to try some active players, it's worth a shot. Even though I think the fun part is the 80s and 90s guys
Mhm.
for sure, and then some of those 70s guys too, like a Marcel Dion
There
would
you go.
sign.
Yep.
Yeah, so for sure, yeah, no, she's gonna have a good time, and she's gonna enjoy a lot of the different eras of haircuts and mustaches over the years.
Yes.
And so and the hockey guys are famous for that, mostly because they grow their beards out during the playoffs. But just in general, I think, personality wise, I think hockey players want to, and when you're wearing a helmet, especially nowadays when all of them are wearing helmets, I think they're trying to distinguish themselves a little bit. But yeah, she's gonna have fun. I mean, hockey is, I think, there's no stats on this, but I think return on, it'd be kind of curious to do a whole like database and see like of all the major sports with the best signers. We say hockey guys are the best signers, and I think it's true, but it's anecdotal. I don't think it's stats behind it.
Right.
But she's going to be, her mailbox will be full. Let's put it that way.
I'll see it in my spreadsheet sometime. You can see if there's any analysis on there you can glean from it.
Yeah, or maybe already look at the trading card database and just to try to figure out in there if there's like, just based on people's returns, if there's any kind of higher percentage. But look, I can name, like Mike Gartner is a great signer, and a lot of these guys are great signers, and you can mail them like you can write to these guys, 5 times a year and they would sign. So it just it's crazy.
Yeah. We've got about 7.5 minutes before Zoom cuts us off here on this portion, but we were talking a little bit there. You got some soccer pickups here this week. Bought a box there. So what can you tell us about the Donruss soccer? How's that looking this year?
Yeah, Donruss soccer is great. I've been buying it since 2017, 2018, and I got to tell you, it's like doubled in price since then. Like everything else, like all wax. I don't buy a lot of wax anymore as a result because I'd rather spend that money on singles or finishing sets or whatever. But I plucked the $300 down to get the Donruss box, and the only reason the Donruss soccer is so much money now is because the kabooms are in there.
Yes.
And those are case hits. Everyone knows that. And so I didn't get one of those. And, but when Kaboom was not a thing and was not in that set, that box would cost $140. And that made more sense at $300. But I get the base set every year and everything else. And so there's always an autograph or a relic. And, I pulled a Luca de la Torre autograph card. He's a young American player. Now, if you're in Europe and you pull this card, you're probably like, oh, this is terrible. I didn't pull, like Mbappe or something, who's in the news this week because he's at Real Madrid now.
Right.
But as an American fan, I'm thrilled to get American players. So that's great. And then, the rookie to watch for is a young guy named Endrick, who's a Brazilian player. He might be actually playing in the Copa America this summer for Brazil. He's also been signed by Real Madrid next year. So Real Madrid, who just won the Champions League, is going from having like the best players in the world, and they've added Mbappe and Endrick to that list. So this is a team that's gotten like way better, if that's possible.
Yeah.
And so rich get richer, but, and of course, any Mbappe cards do well. The interesting thing about these new soccer products is that Ronaldo and Messi are like no longer a thing because they're not playing in Europe anymore. So we're entering a new era for soccer where Ronaldo, Messi are kind of in the past. And now there's all these younger players like Mbappe. And I mentioned Endrick and Pedri from Barcelona and all these other younger players that are definitely worth chasing. But it's a fun box. If you have the money, it's a fun rip. Lots of, parallels, lots of inserts, all these big fat packs. Panini does a really nice job with this set. I like it a lot.
I've always liked Donruss. I completed the 2018 Donruss set. Did everything, the base, all of the base inserts, and then just the optic base as well. And it was so fun to put all that together.
Yeah, and I want to mention this because you can't mention Donruss without mentioning this. You pull a soccer rookie. There's so many different rookies now, but the rated rookie logo, that to me that card's worth more. It's not, but to me it's symbolic. It means something in the hobby, and so I like that. So if I buy any soccer, it's the Donruss just for the rated rookie.
Yeah. I think the 2026 National, next one I go to, I'm just going to wear rated rookie shirts the entire week in every different color. So, yep.
Yeah, that's iconic for sure.
Yes. So lastly, before we call the segment complete, you got some TTMs to talk about that you mentioned there. I'm anxious to hear about this one that you.
I got one TTM. I have two TTMs. One, I got an Alan Ginter, Bonnie Blair signed it. Oh yeah. And a few months, and I was on an Olympic kick a year ago, and some of them are starting to come in, so that's fun with the Summer Olympics coming up.
Yes.
It's a fun thing to do. And Alan Ginter, as you know, I mean, you've done a lot of those.
Yeah.
That's a great place to look for Olympians and then it's Olympic cards too. But I bought back in March of almost 2 years ago now, at a flea market, I bought a 1998 Upper Deck Juan Gonzalez card. Now, Upper Deck baseball, iconic. This card was $5. It was not a $5 card. It was cheaper than that. But I didn't want to haggle with the guy. It was a screw down case. It's not his rookie, of course. So I bought it out of the screw down and I mailed it because I know he's a good signer.
Yep.
I mailed it in and I forgot about it. And every once in a while I would think about it and go, it's really odd. People get him back within 100 days.
Yeah.
Whatever, 200 days, whatever it is. And this card, 800 days.
Oh my God.
800 days and it came back signed. Nice blue autograph, and it was mailed to his Puerto Rico address, and it came back stamped Puerto Rico. So clearly, it was in the right place. He must have just either does them in waves, and my card got lost in that wave, or who knows, or he doesn't like New York. That's where I live. I don't know, but 800 days exactly, and I was like,
jeez.
Wow. And it's kind of funny because I think the thing with TTN that we forget is that the story behind the story, it's the story behind the card, the story behind, like, I bought it at a flea market. I overpaid for it. I mailed it in. It took 800 days to come back. Now, I have so many cards that I have TTN'd in albums, but this one, whenever I see this one, I will always remember that.
Yes.
And I think part of the fun of TTMing, I think that people don't often talk about.
Yeah. Even with in-person graphing, that could be half the fun, too. I mean, I've got an Ed Belfour autograph that I remember just because... Oh, yeah, I had to stay out until like 10:30 at night for that thing, and he tried to sneak in a back door on us, and we're like, no, you don't. We see you there, and he came over and signed. So that's half of it. I mean, sure, you can attach a monetary value to it, but there's a lot more value than just that to some of these things, for sure.
Yeah, and Ed Belfour is a good signer now.
Yes.
Yeah, so anyway, but I know time is running out, so.
Yeah, any thoughts before we call an end to this one at all?
No, just enjoy the finals. I think it's going to go 6-7 games, so just buckle up. It's going to be fun.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, once again, that is Clemente's World. Clemente Lisi joining us here once again, and thanks for coming on, and we'll see you again next month as well.
Thanks.
And a big thanks once again to Clemente Lisi joining us here in Clemente's World. Let's take a look now at Making the Grade.
Making the Grade is sponsored by CGC Cards. All card grading, all in one place. Certified Guarantee Company, CGC, devoted to the expert grading of collectible cards. Visit cgccards.com today.
Well, Making the Grade is just a summary of what's been going on among the big four grading companies, especially here over the previous few weeks. We've got some numbers courtesy of gemrate.com. And give us a rundown. What's been going on here at the end of May and on into June?
For the week of May the 27th through June the 2nd, PSA graded 273.3 thousand cards. That is down 20%. CGC graded 34.4 thousand cards, down 2%. SGC graded 29.4 thousand cards. That is down 23%. And Beckett graded 7.7 thousand cards, down 39%. All in all, there were 344.8 thousand cards graded the week of May 27th through June the 2nd.
Drop there from probably due to Memorial Day there, I would guess. Everybody getting a day off in there, but I'm sure they'll bounce back up pretty massively once we see these numbers again next week for sure. With that, let's move on to the Big Three.
This week's Big Three is brought to you by gemrate.com. Whose cards are hot and whose cards are cold this week? Let's find out from our friends at gemrate.com.
The Big Three tells us the ups and downs of individual players. 3 risers, 3 fallers. This is an exclusive number to TTM Cast. Gemrate gives that to us every week. You'll only find it here, so don't go look around for it anywhere else. It's the only place you're going to find that number. So let's take a look and see who is going up. Colton Cowser leading the list right now, up 57% this week. In Soccer World, Kylian Mbappe up 40%. I'm sure that signing with Real Madrid having a bit to do with that. And in the basketball world, Jalen Brunson up 20% as well. Victor Wembanyama not in the Big Three there, but he does continue his dominance of grading right now. He had 10 of the top 20 cards in grading volume this past week. Fastest growing card for him right now is his 2023 Select Concourse Blue retail rookie cards. So his name, even though he's didn't make it into the playoffs and his season's been over for a couple weeks now, Wemby's still making a big splash in the collectibles world. Aaron, who's been dropping here this week?
And on the downside, we have Lamar Jackson, who is down 15%. We have Brewers rising star Jackson Chourio down 18%, and Max Clark is down 30%.
There you go. A few numbers falling there. Not sure any reason there behind Jackson and Chourio. Lamar Jackson and Jackson Chourio. There we go. Let's keep those separated, but not sure why the drop on those. Who knows? Lamar Jackson Chourio. We'll just run it all together there, and he's down 33%. I don't know. That's not sure why those guys are dropping. Who knows? I'm sure they'll bounce back, though, pretty soon. So once again, a big thanks to GemRate.com for providing these numbers to us here every week as an exclusive to TTM Cast. With that, let's move on to our TTM Cast stamp of approval.
I bet you're wondering who earned this week's TTM Cast stamp of approval.
The stamp of approval is a chance for us to give our 2 thumbs up to something, anything from the previous week. I mean, it might be something sports-related, might be collectibles-related. It might not be. Might be food. Might be music. Might be movies. Might be something on TV. Who knows? But I've actually got 2 that I got to throw in. One of them I forgot to mention earlier on, and that is that North Melbourne has finally won a game in the AFL this season. Pulled off the 74-65 win either early this morning or late last night. Not sure when exactly that game took place, over the West Coast Eagles. They're 1-11 now this season. Anyone who's been listening to the show for a long time knows that I'm a longtime North Melbourne Kangaroos fan of the AFL, and their women's team was incredible the last couple of years, and their men's team has been completely on the opposite side of things. They have whatever the opposite of incredible would be. So I think they won 2 games 2 years ago, 1 game last year, and so far 1 this year. And yes, there it is on my little scoreboard thing right now. Nice to see that there. But so a win for North Melbourne. Finally, that's my first one. And my second one goes to a company called School of Hot Sauce, brand hot sauces. So I mentioned on the show 2 weeks ago that I went out to Zest Fest in Fort Worth, Texas. It's a kind of a semi-annual event. They do it usually. It's typically annual, but last couple of years they've kind of changed everything up, and they wanted to put Memorial Day weekend this year, and did so, and had some really great stuff out there. But I want to highlight a School of Hot Sauce brand. All of their hot sauces are Carolina Reaper based, which is one of the hottest peppers in the world. I think it's the second hottest behind Pepper X right now. But Carolina Reapers, I try to avoid Reapers for the most part because they're like blow your head off kind of heat no matter what you put them with. I mean, there's no good way to dilute that, unfortunately. But they make all Reaper-based sauces that have varying heats and great flavors. I was able to pick up a bottle of their medium sauce that was quite good. It's got this, I haven't gotten to open my bottle here at all, but they did have samples of it there and tried them out, and quite good. So if you're interested in some good hot sauces, and a good cause, is a veteran-owned company as well, go and check them out at safiestallc.com. School of Hot Sauce brand hot sauces are this week's TTM Cast stamp of approval. Aaron, what do you got for us this week?
Well, for the first thing, Pepper X is an awesome name. It sounds like a 90s rapper, Eminem and Nate Dogg featuring Pepper X. Nice. But anyway, I digress. So my stamp of approval has to go, and you're probably going to roll your eyes, but to just the sports teams in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area. What a year it has been to be a sports fan from North Texas. The Texas Rangers, against all odds, are your World Series champions from last year, 2023 World Series champions. You know, the Dallas Mavericks make it all the way to the NBA Finals. The Dallas Stars make it to the Western Conference Finals. I mean, it has just been a ride, and so it's been really fun, you know, for a region that has had very limited sports success throughout my lifetime. So I'm starting to feel what it's like to be from Boston.
Being the odds at throwing $800 million at free agents. All right, let's tap the brakes a little bit on that part at least. I mean, come on now.
So the thing about the Rangers, yes, they spent some money. That is definitely for sure. But the thing is that the bullpen was so terrible for most of the year last year. And, you know, the offense carried them for streaks. It's like it had to happen. It was very much against all odds. They had really no business, especially the way they ended the regular season. They had no business. You know, I thought that they were going to be like, you know, out immediately, and they just kind of kept plugging away. And to win 11 games on the road to win your first championship, it was, it was something special. But yes, that is not to say that they did not spend some money along the way.
I mean, that is kind of Bostonian as well, because in 2003, the year before the Red Sox finally broke the curse, they had that same thing with an absolutely terrible bullpen during the regular season that, I mean, you could give them a 7-1 lead and they might still be at risk of blowing it there, but came out at the right time in the playoffs until, of course, Tim Wakefield gave the home run, but then they shorted up in 2004. So kind of the same sort of thing going on there. But you mentioned 3 out of the 4 teams right there, but how about them Cowboys?
I keep seeing memes. There's memes, everybody loves to dog on the Cowboys, and, probably rightfully so. But I think their fan base kind of encourages it sometimes.
Yes.
But, it was like years since having gone to the whatever the league, the conference finals. And it was like Rangers 0, Stars 0, Mavericks 0, Cowboys 28. It's some rough time for Jerry at Jerry's World these days.
That's one of the things my wife said. She's like, I'm not sure that I would mind the Stars winning so much, just because, I mean, having the Stars, the Mavericks, and Rangers all winning would just piss off Jerry Jones so much. And I'm like, there is something to be said for that. So, yeah. There you go, the DFW sports scene for Aaron Stamp approval. And with that, let's move on to the Vern Rapp Minute. The Vern Rapp Minute is dedicated to the memory of Mr. Vern Rapp, former Major League ball player and manager. Our show's founder, Jeff Baker, mailed out an autograph request to him, not knowing that he had already died, and so we provide this as a service to collectors to let you know, hey, who has passed away in the world of sports, celebrity, music, movies, politics, anybody you might consider TTMing, just so that you don't make the mistakes that we have made. So, first on the list, Bill Walton passed away here about 2 weeks ago. Since our last show, at least, so this is going to be the last couple of weeks here of deaths, but Bill Walton died here in the last couple of weeks. He was, of course, a center in the NBA for a long time, 1974 to 87. Played for Portland, for the San Diego, LA Clippers, and the Boston Celtics. 2-time All-Star, a 2-time NBA champion, the 1978 MVP, and, of course, made it into the Hall of Fame in 1993. Walton was not a TTMer, but he did do a lot of card shows, signing at a lot of those. He was at the National almost every year. Walton was 71 years old.
Also lost Larry Allen at the age of 52. He was an anchor of the Cowboys offensive line from 1994 to 2007. He also played for the San Francisco 49ers. He made 11 Pro Bowls and was an All-Pro 6 times. He was a Super Bowl 30 champion and made the Hall of Fame in 2013. He was not a TTMer, and that one really kind of hits home for me, because the Rangers, for a few years at the end of the 90s into the 2000s, the Cowboys, did their training camp at my alma mater here in Wichita Falls, Midwestern State. And so I'd go out there and I'd watch them almost every single day. And, I was fortunate enough to get Larry Allen a time or two autograph after the practice. So that one hits pretty close.
It's still weird to me that their camps are out in California now. That just seems it's bizarre to me. Let's see, we've lost Marvin Upshaw this week, keeping it on the football theme here. Defensive lineman, 1968 to 76 for the Browns, the Chiefs, and the St. Louis Cardinals. His brother, a little bit more famous, Gene Upshaw, was a offensive lineman for the Raiders for a long time. Marvin Ose's pretty good career, though, with 9.5 sacks in 1974 for Kansas City. Sacks not an official stat at that point, but through some research, they've gone back and credited him with 9.5 of those. He was an excellent TTMer through the year 2022. Marvin Upshaw was 77 years old.
We also lost Larry Cannon, who was 77 years old. He was a shooting guard from 1969 to 1974, mostly in the ABA. In 1971, he was all ABA with the Denver Rockets. Top 10 in points and assists that year, and he was an excellent TTMer through July.
Not into the baseball world, we lost Hank Foyles in the last couple of weeks. He was a catcher for a long, well, not a super long time, but 11 seasons in Major League Baseball, 1953 to 64. Bounced around to quite a few teams in that time. He was with the Reds, the Indians, the Kansas City A's, the Pirates, the Tigers, the Orioles, and the Angels. He was an all-star, actually, in 1957. Hit a career-best 9 home runs that season as well, playing for the Pirates. Foyles was an excellent TTMer through 2021. He was 94 years old.
And also, sticking with baseball, we lost Dan Five, who was 74 years old. He was a pitcher from 1973 to 74 with the Minnesota Twins. He was drafted twice by the Tigers. Played high school and college baseball in Michigan, and last game was at Tiger Stadium. He owned a 3-2 career record in 56 innings, and he was an excellent TTMer through June.
Last for this week, we lost Hank Allen. He was a utility man from 1966 to 73 for Washington, Milwaukee, and the Chicago White Sox. Played everywhere except pitcher and shortstop in his career. Most was a left fielder, played a whole 1 inning as a catcher, apparently. You may be familiar with his brother as well. Dick Allen was a longtime great major leaguer. Hank was an occasional TTM, about a 50% success rate through 2023. He was 83 years old. Well, that does it for the Vern Rapp Minute. Our thoughts are with you if you lost anyone this week. And let's move on now to our TTM returns.
Was our mailbox full this week? Let's take a look at this week's TTM returns.
Well, that's the main reason why we all are here, to see what we sent out, what we got back, to know what you guys have sent out and gotten back. And I've had kind of a slow week this week. Last week, unfortunately, though, I had a pretty good one. So 5 total I've gotten in, and some pretty big names among them. I'm going to go in opposite order from probably least well-known to best well-known, I guess I'm going to do this. So we'll start with Michael Brooks, who is a linebacker for the Broncos and Giants. Never was a guy with a huge number of sacks or a whole lot of interceptions, but a very sure tackler at least. Played in a Pro Bowl, was an All-Pro 1 year as well. Sent to him through his Texas home address, and he signed, I believe it was 404 in 2 weeks. Also got back Ronnie Lippett, who was a defensive back for the New England Patriots. Here's an interesting bit of esoteric trivia that no one's ever going to care about. Who was the leader in 1986 in interceptions among players with the first name of Ronnie and last name started with an L and ending with 2 T's? If you said Ronnie Lippett, you're wrong. It was Ronnie Lott. So, but Ronnie Lippett had 8 interceptions that year, though, which is a pretty nice number right there. Lott ending up with 10, though. Lippett, though, signed 4 cards for me through a Massachusetts address. That took about 2 weeks, I believe, on that return as well. They've got 3 Baseball Hall of Famers I've gotten in here as well. Mike Mussina signed one of his rookie cards for me. A $10 fee on that one. Took about 3 weeks. Bert Blyleven, I had 3 cards I needed him on, so I sent those off. $20 each. Took about a 3-week turnaround through his home address in Florida. And the big one here for me was Steve Carlton. Knocked out 5 set needs. He charged a $40 each fee on those. I mailed to him in Colorado through the charity that he's been working with. He signed all 5 of those and got them back. Also about a 2 to 3 week turnaround on that. So throwing around some of that overtime money that I made there a couple weeks ago. But hey, using it for good stuff right there with some set needs on some Hall of Famers. So always fun to get those back. Aaron, what's your inbox here look like over the last few weeks?
For the first thing, I'm just dead. That piece of trivia was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I feel like you need to do title Master of Trivia. No one cares about that.
Yes.
That got a ring to.
Well, hey, at some point, that is going to come up on like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or Jeopardy or something like that. And I'm going to be sitting there going, haha, my time has come. So, yeah.
Well, let's hope for everybody's sake that your time does come eventually. So I only got one return this week, and that was former Montreal Expos catcher Gilberto Reyes. So not shut out this week, but it's always good to get.
It's good to know that he's signed. So I know I've got a couple of cards of him out there too. So now if we can get Nelson Santovenia to sign along with it, and Hector Villanueva that's like, all right, now we're really in the tall cotton at this point. But I got to go through and see if I can find my Reyes cards there and get one out to him now that I know that he signs. All right, well, that about does it here for this week's show. Big thanks once again to Clemente Lisi joining us in Clemente's World. Arron, thanks for joining us here once again as well. And next, we'll have Collector's Corner. Not sure who we're going to talk to just yet, but we'll find someone to interview here. I've got a few possibilities in mind. Got to talk to my friend Kevin, see if he's finally available yet, but we'll see about that. Arron, before we sign off, any other thoughts on anything here? I know, like I said, not a whole lot going on until you hit California there and All-Star Village, of course, in there. But any other thoughts? Any stuff you're going to be mailing out? Anything like that going on?
Yeah, I've got a few that are supposedly going out. It's funny how the time warp in my world happens. I'm like, oh, I think I can get these out by the end of the week, and then like 3 weeks later, it takes me it takes me to finally get it out. But no, it's great. It's always great. Being here and being unfired is spectacular. I feel great. So maybe we can come back and do it again at some point. If you want to follow me, you can do so. The Instagram is kind of the hub for that at Arron Sports Card Explosion. You can check out my Michael Young collection. You can see you can follow me on the Eternal Graphing Tour, which this year will roll through Oakland and San Francisco, California. So yeah, it's going to be fun. But thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And make sure that if you go to follow him there, the spelling is Arron and not Aaron. If you look for that, you're going to end up totally lost. You're going to go, what the hell? I typed exactly what he said. Not quite. So I'm in the same boat right now. I've got a few that I've been saying, yes, I need to mail these out. I mean, I picked up rookie cards of Leroy Kelly, Eric Dickerson, and Masanori Murakami. And yeah, I just haven't put the pen to the paper yet on those. But hopefully this week I can get those done. I mean, I don't really have any huge plans tomorrow as far as I know. My wife's kind of glared at me, so apparently I do have plans tomorrow. So, okay, good. She's shaking her head saying, no, you're fine. So I'll be able to crank out some TTMs tomorrow, get those mailed out, and have some more Hall of Famer rookie cards to hopefully talk about coming back in the mailbox here soon. So once again, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Wishing you many happy returns.
Everyone, be good.